Buenos dias, world, from the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm Marco Wendt.
And I'm Rick Schwartz. And we're your hosts for Season 3 of Amazing Wildlife, a show from iHeartRadio Ruby Studio and the global conservation organization behind the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
Listen as we dive into the efforts here in San Diego and spotlight the heroes working worldwide to care for the species you know and love.
Listen to Amazing Wildlife on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. It is Open Line Friday. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am just laughing at the Phony Willis situation. The judge in the Phony Willis case, Scott McAfee, and it is become the Phony Willis case because of Phony Willis's arrogance, her prosecution of Donald Trump. The judge has decided to play Solomon and split the baby. He told Phony Willis she's not going to be disqualified from the case unless she refuses to disqualify Nathan Wade. So either Nathan Wade goes or Phony Willis goes. He did not believe, the judge said, the credibility of some of the witnesses about the relationship that Willis and Wade were alleged to be in, and as a result couldn't establish a time frame for the relationship, but noted that Nathan Wade was so contradictory in statements made in his divorce case that there were clear reasons to believe that he probably wasn't being as forthcoming as he should. So the judge says either Nathan Wade goes or Phony Willis goes. It's Phony Willis's choice. She can ditch her boyfriend from the case, or she can be gone herself. Now, this obviously doesn't satisfy the Trump folks. The judge decided that he's going to keep the case around. He's not going to throw out the case. But this is still a problem for Willis and for the Democrats, because they decided to engage in lawfare. Y'all, I want to pause here. I was on Leland Vittert's News Nation program yesterday. Leland, by the way, if you ever want to watch a great news program that actually covers the news factually, at 7 p.m. Eastern time on News Nation, the thing that I like about Leland's show is he plays devil's advocate with everyone. So he gives me a hard time when I come on. He gives a Democrat a hard time when the Democrat comes on. He asks probing questions. And he's very matter of fact. Forget the theories, forget the narratives. Here are the facts. I appreciate that a ton about Leland's show. If you want a great news program to be watching at night where you actually get fair and balanced truth, watch Leland Vittert on News Nation, 7 p.m. Eastern. Not paid to say that. I enjoy going on the program. One of the few TV programs I enjoy doing because he challenges me and he pushes me, and it makes me better at what I do, and it is not two talking heads yelling at each other. Now, on Leland's show last night, I was pointing out that Democrats have been trying for silver bullets to stop Donald Trump. Silver bullets are what you shoot to stop the werewolf. They're mythological, literary creation. And they don't actually work in politics. Republicans tried this with Bill Clinton, with Watergate, with Monica Lewinsky, and he just kept winning. Democrats tried it with George W. Bush with the National Guard story. That one blew up in Dan Rather's face, and George W. Bush kept on winning. Republicans then tried it all. Saul Alinsky and all the accusations against Barack Obama didn't stop Barack Obama. Everybody, both sides, try to latch on to salacious claims that rile up their own base. but don't actually advance a political agenda. Republicans are doing it right now, tying Hunter Biden to Joe Biden, and it's not really working for them. The case is collapsing in on itself. Even Republicans in Congress are starting to ask themselves, what are we doing? Yes, you Republicans, you love it. You love it. It's not persuading anybody else. What's persuading people is the economy. But the Democrats decided they got to stop Donald Trump, and because of the economy, because of Joe Biden's handling of the economy, the Democrats, well, they got to come up with something, and they decided the way to come up with it was an aggressive prosecution of Donald Trump, an aggressive multi-state strategy. Alvin Bragg kicked it off. Now, the Alvin Bragg case, notice it's the case that nobody talks about. And the reason nobody talks about the Alvin Bragg case, and it's ironically and hilariously the case that might actually be able to be tried this year, the Alvin Bragg case is a ludicrous case. It is not a very serious case. And even the people who are progressive partisans in New York don't take it seriously. Why? The Alvin Bragg case is predicated on Donald Trump breaking the laws of the state of New York by breaking federal campaign finance law. There's a problem. Donald Trump's never been found guilty of violating federal campaign finance law. And the specific federal campaign finance law Donald Trump is accused of breaking is only allowed to be tried in federal courts. So Alvin Bragg is trying to backdoor way around this case. And everybody knows, even if a jury of partisan progressives in New York City find Donald Trump guilty, it's going to get thrown out on appeal. Because a state cannot say, well, because he broke this federal law, he broke the state law. It makes very clear that only the federal government can prosecute these classes of cases. There's no double dipping. There's no double jeopardy issue here. There's no way to drag Donald Trump into state court under these statutes, particularly when he hasn't been found guilty at the federal level. And all of the other attorneys who advised Alvin Bragg told him not to bring the case, but he brought it anyway. And it skyrocketed Trump's polling. And now even Bragg is like, we'll put this case off for a month. So you have that situation. And then you have the situation of the Judge Chutkan in Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court is dealing with that case right now. It's not going to happen before the election. You know, it's funny how the media, and this is something Leland and I were talking about last night, the media has been praising that case. They've been attacking Judge Cannon in Florida, who's a Trump appointee. They've been praising Judge Chutkan, who's an Obama appointee. They've been fawning all over her and her competence, and yet hers is the case that's already being appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And notice how they reacted when the Supreme Court took the appeal. They were bitter and angry on TV about it. Judge Chutkan's case, she's not going to let it fall apart because she doesn't like Donald Trump, and it's very obvious. But she's going to get whittled away on appeal. And then there's Judge Cannon. You know, the media was all up in arms that Judge Cannon allowed Donald Trump a hearing over a motion to dismiss. And they were all like, I can't believe she's wasting our time with this. Let's get it on the road. Let's move this case along. She rejected Donald Trump's claim. But the telling point, and this is really important, the telling point is that she's allowing the processes to work. And now you know what the left is doing is they're like, well, what's Donald Trump scared of? He's not scared. He's using the processes of the judicial system to refine his case and make it prosecutable and slow the trains down. Every defendant gets this right. It's remarkable to see a bunch of Democrats who are so pro-criminal defendant be as anti-criminal defense process as possible here. You've even got a law school dean up in Michigan saying the state has a right to a quick and speedy trial as well. No, the hell it doesn't. I'm sorry, Dean, law professor. I actually did very well in constitutional law in law school. My highest grade in law school, no doubt. It's true. I got a 98% in constitutional law, highest grade in my entire class. The defendant has the right to a quick and speedy trial. The defendant also has a right to clarifying terms and a clarifying prosecution and clarifying process so that he understands what he's actually being charged with. That's at issue in Georgia, where the judge threw out 6 charges because he said that the prosecutor had made them so broad and so vague, it was hard for the defendant to tell what he was actually being charged, what crime he was actually being accused of committing. The judge in Florida hasn't given Trump the win that everyone expected her to give him. At the same time, they hate her because they know seems to be pro-defendant. They would love to have pro-defendant judges, just not a pro-defendant judge when the defendant's Donald Trump. And now here in Georgia, you got Phony Willis. Phony Willis can keep the case, but only if Nathan Wade goes away. Now, again, I need to make this point to all of you so that you understand this, and it is something repetitive. It's something I've said before. I practiced law in the state of Georgia for 6 years, 5 years in a law firm, 1 year winding down my practice after I left my law firm. From 2000 to 2006, I practiced law in the state of Georgia, and in that time, I did 2 RICO cases. Nathan Wade has been a lawyer longer than I practice law, and in that time has done 0 RICO cases. And he is who Phony Willis put in charge of the case. I, who has not practiced law since 2006, I have more competence and skill in dealing with RICO cases than Nathan Wade. And I would never take on the case because RICO is an extremely complicated set of laws, and I haven't dealt with them in years. He's never dealt with them. It is beyond absurd that he's the guy she put in charge. The judge should have thrown the whole thing out, in my opinion, but what he did is split the baby, and that was his right to do. Perhaps the Trump team can appeal it. But he split the baby, and it still puts Phony Willis in a difficult position because she's going to have to remove Nathan Wade to keep the case, and that's going to drag the case out. And if Trump gets reelected, which is very likely, that case hits a pause button. It hits a pause button for 4 years while he's president. You're not going to prosecute the president of the United States while he's acting as president of the United States. The case would stay pending. The case would stay paused, and she would have to wait for Trump to end his presidency. Ironically, Donald Trump is going to win Georgia. You know, CNN has out its electoral college map based on its internal polling right now of each state. And right now, Donald Trump has 273 electoral college votes in the CNN map. You only need 270 to win. So if the election were held today, according to CNN, Donald Trump would get elected. The Democrats wanted these silver bullets. They wanted to stop Donald Trump. They wanted to go to court. They wanted to prosecute him. They wanted it done quick. They're trying to move it as fast as possible. They can't. The wheels of justice move slowly to benefit defendants, and they've known this the whole time, and yet they were so desperate, and it's a damning indictment of Joe Biden's competence to run for president of the United States that the Democrats wanted to take a judicial process that moves slow and take out Donald Trump through the judicial process, then try to take him out of the ballot box. And now, because they're not going to be able to take him out of the ballot box, they're not going to be able to take him out, period. This is their reality. Democrats made the choice to try to combat Donald Trump in courts of law, not on the campaign trail. Courts of law don't operate according to campaigns. They don't operate according to the timetable Democrats desire. They operate in the interests of justice, which very often moves slowly to benefit the defendant because the defendant is presumed innocent and gets every benefit of the doubt in court. And that's where Democrats decided they wanted to fight Donald Trump because they're so lacking in confidence that they can beat him at the ballot box. And now the result is that not only are they probably not going to beat him at the ballot box, they're not going to be able to beat him in a court of law either because they decided to give up. They gave up before they even started. The moment they decided the path to beat Donald Trump was in the courtroom and not the ballot box is the moment they gave up trying to beat Donald Trump. And guess what? The strategy is turning out exactly as I told you it would.
Buenos dias, world, from the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm Marco Wendt.
And I'm Rick Schwartz. And we're your hosts for Season 3 of Amazing Wildlife, a show from iHeartRadio Ruby Studio and the global conservation organization behind the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
Listen as we dive into the efforts here in San Diego and spotlight the heroes working worldwide to care for the species you know and love.
Listen to Amazing Wildlife on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is an open line Friday here at the Eric Erickson Show. The phone number 877-973-7425. As always, you can text the word Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the podcast, the show notes. Follow me around social media. Rod, you're going to be up first today. Welcome to the show.
Yes, I'm a friend of Will Davis, Macon reporter.
Oh, fantastic.
PCA Church in Forsyth. And Will had an article in the Macon Reporter edition that he puts out that the Macon Transit Authority and Washington Library are using on-the-table grant money to purchase All Our Neighbors, written by two ladies who support the LGBTQ agenda and lifestyle. They mentioned a female couple and a male couple who are parents. So I have written letters to the editor in Macon Telegraph and the Reporter, and I've contacted the American Center for Law and Justice, but I want your personal opinion, sir.
All right. So this one is complicated, and it's complicated in this fact. It's a public library as opposed to just an elementary school library where something may be inappropriate in an elementary school library. It's not necessarily the same standard for a public library. Public libraries have all sorts of trashy novels and other things that you and I might think are inappropriate, but frankly, Macon has, in Middle Georgia, has a large gay population, and to discriminate against them in a public library setting would actually put the public library in a legal conundrum. If, however, they are prioritizing progressive books and ignoring everything else, then there's a case to be made that they're misusing their funds, not to cater to the broad population, but to a specific niche of the population, and you may have something. But there is a vast difference, and we've got to be careful as conservatives in dealing with the categories that a public library represents everybody in the community, not just the elementary school per se. And there's a difference between having explicit materials in an elementary school and materials in a public library. That is because, in large part, again, public libraries cater to everybody. There is a large gay population in Middle Georgia. You can't deny them books that cater to their community of interests in a public library. Even the conservatives on the Supreme Court would say you've got an issue there. So you do got to be careful in the nuancing there. I don't know that there's a legal issue in a public library. If it was an elementary school library, that would be different. But in a public library, publicly accessible, there's a difference. So you do got to be careful with that. But I got to tell you, God bless you for your activism on this cause. So many people sit on the sidelines and don't want to engage on issues at all. It's nice to have fired up people who are willing to stand up for what they believe in. Now, we got to move on. Wait, here's this story. Let's see. Yeah, okay, here it is. The Macon Transit Authority Washington Memorial Library are teaming up to give pro-LGBT children's books to first graders. Now, there's the issue. It's giving them to first graders. All right, yep, that in and of itself, that is an issue. Yes. Now, thank you for sending me that story there, Philip. Yes, targeting your kids. Now, I got to tell you, between high interest rates and Bidenomics running wild, and now all these stories that are coming out in the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere about the coming collapse of regional banks because of corporate credit and the like, you got to be wondering how you can protect your hard-earned assets. Well, Swiss America can help you. For over 40 years, they've been a trusted leader in precious metals. They want to teach you how to protect your hard-earned assets right now. You can call them and begin a relationship with them at 800-289-2646 or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Just mention me, Eric, when you call or text 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. You can also get the report, The Secret War on Cash. You can visit SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, and get their help. Inquire how you can protect your hard-earned assets. Swiss America has been educating people for 40 years on this topic. 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply.
Buenos dias, world, from the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm Marco Wendt.
And I'm Rick Schwartz. And we're your hosts for Season 3 of Amazing Wildlife, a show from iHeartRadio Ruby Studio and the global conservation organization behind the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
Listen as we dive into the efforts here in San Diego and spotlight the heroes working worldwide to care for the species you know and love.
Listen to Amazing Wildlife on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Greetings, conversationalists. It's Eric Erickson here. Open line Friday, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, happy to have you. We got to talk about the fallout of Chuck Schumer's remarks to Israel, about Israel. So let me set the stage for you on what happened. Here again, Chuck Schumer's remarks. He was addressed on the floor of the Senate.
The fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. As a lifelong supporter of Israel, it has become clear to me the Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past. 5 months into this conflict, it is clear that Israelis need to take stock of the situation and ask, must we change course? At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
That was Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate. You should know that not only did Benjamin Netanyahu come out and blast him, which was obvious, the Israeli ambassador to the United States did in obviously diplomatic terms, and he's not a sycophant for Bibi Netanyahu. His brother actually ran the opposition campaign against Netanyahu. Also, Naftali, the other prime minister, not Bibi in the last 10 years, he was one of Bibi's rivals. He's come out and attacked it. And the leader of the current opposition in Israel has also attacked Chuck Schumer for saying this, that essentially they're all saying, Bibi's our problem, not your problem. Your problem is Hamas. Help us beat Hamas, and we'll deal with this issue later. Bibi Netanyahu is not popular in Israel right now. A lot of people blame him for what's going on, saying he caused a series of distractions that distracted the intelligence service, whether that's fair or not. They're all saying right now he's in a coalition government designed to stop Hamas. We'll deal with him later. Well, Mitch McConnell came out and took after Chuck Schumer, also on the floor of the Senate.
Our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel. This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies this way at all.
That's Mitch McConnell. Here's the Speaker of the House.
As we were in a work session here within the last half hour, there was a buzz among the audience as people were seeing notices come across their phone as something that was rather shocking to us. We saw the remarks from Senator Chuck Schumer calling for new elections in Israel. And we want to speak very clearly and concisely to say that this is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong for an American leader to play such a divisive role in Israeli politics while our closest ally in the region is in an existential battle for its very survival.
I want to be very clear to you what's going on. Chuck Schumer is desperate to stay majority leader. And Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden together have decided to give a heckler's veto to the uncommitted vote out of Michigan. They're spooked by it. In the Michigan Democratic primary, roughly 13 to 15% of voters voted uncommitted against Joe Biden. And they can't bring themselves to acknowledge the auto workers of Michigan did this because they're furious at what Joe Biden has done to the auto industry. Instead, they decided it was all voters in Dearborn. Now, there was a significant vote in Dearborn, and I don't want to undermine that, but it wasn't the only vote in Michigan. There was a massive uprising against Joe Biden from auto workers you can see in that vote, not just from the precincts in Dearborn, Michigan, that has a heavy Muslim population. But they've decided to interpret it as a heckler's veto. And they're giving in to them. They're giving in. They're shaking up the politics there. Now, what I find also equally remarkable is the media coverage of this. Let me see if I can find this coverage real quick from CBS News. It was kind of remarkable to me that CBS News would try to do cover and damage control for Chuck Schumer this morning after this blew up. I mean, this became an international story with a lot of people condemning Chuck Schumer. The White House says they knew about it and that it was a passionate statement from Chuck Schumer and they're not going to add anything to it. Listen to the spin from CBS News.
Senate Majority Leader also went after Hamas for starting the war on October 7 with that ruthless massacre.
Chuck Schumer, emphasizing he's the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in the United States, levied a blistering attack on everyone he holds responsible for the war in Gaza.
To blame only Israel for the deaths of Palestinians is unfair, one-sided, and often deliberately manipulative. And it ignores Hamas's role in this conflict.
The Senate Majority Leader blaming the terror group, as well as Israel's far right, as some of the biggest obstacles for a U.S.-backed two-state solution and taking aim at Palestinian leaders.
Notice that blaming the far right in Israel that did not chop off the heads of babies or put them in ovens. That's what Hamas did. Hamas kidnapped Israelis. Hamas won't let them go. You know, they're trying to negotiate a ceasefire right now, and Hamas is saying it doesn't want to give all the hostages back still. It only wants to give some back, a disproportionate number. We'll give you back 5 for 700 Palestinians, then another 5 for another 700. Israel saying, no, give us our people back. Chuck Schumer is willing to sell out Israel because angry progressives in the United States may not show up in November. Despite all the high language and high-mindedness of Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden and the spin from CBS News to defend Chuck Schumer, what's going on here is Chuck Schumer has decided that in order to win in November, Israel must be sold out. Because progressives might not show up, so Donald Trump might get elected, and Hamas winning is not as dangerous to Chuck Schumer as Donald Trump winning. So the terrorists win because Chuck Schumer is putting his electoral position in November ahead of the national security interests of this country or Israel. In fact, Naftali Bennett pointed out, who again was an opposition leader against Benjamin Netanyahu, is pointing out, you help us kill Hamas here or they're coming there. But he's not, Chuck Schumer's not interested in that logic. Chuck Schumer's not interested in recognizing what's happening. He wants to make a political statement and attack Benjamin Netanyahu because he's an easy target. The left in this country hates Benjamin Netanyahu. The left hates him. So you can vilify him on the floor of the Senate and cause an international incident that actually doesn't make the United States look good, but progressives love it because progressives hate Benjamin Netanyahu. They are pro-Hamas. They are anti-Semitic. They are the people who would not pee on Chuck Schumer if he were on fire because he's Jewish, and yet they are the votes that Chuck Schumer needs to stay majority leader in the United States Senate and have Joe Biden be president. So he will sell out Israel for progressive causes in this country. Democrats, you will note, very often accuse Republicans of putting politics ahead of national interests. That's what they say about Donald Trump, that Republicans are backing Donald Trump at the expense of the American constitutional order. They're backing Donald Trump at the expense of their values. They're backing Donald Trump at the expense of the integrity of this country. They're backing Donald Trump politically and partisanly, not on principle. They're abandoning their principles in order to go with Donald Trump because they're scared of his base. Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer are doing the same thing with the Democratic base. They are scared of their base, they are scared of losing, and they're willing to sell out Israel to progressive anti-Semitic partisans in order to stay in power, rationalizing that if we stay in power, we can manage the situation. But you're already selling out the situation, guys. You're already selling them out. I say all the time, Donald Trump's superpower is making other people behave in the way they claim he behaves. This is just another example of that. They think Donald Trump doesn't value principles. He values crass political maneuvering to try to get power. It's exactly what they're doing. It's exactly what they're doing. And it jeopardizes Israel and gives Hamas encouragement to drag this situation out. Hamas now says we could not have predicted that Israel would respond in the way it responded. That's actually a statement from Hamas's leaders. That they've expressed their surprise that Israel would react the way Israel has reacted so thoroughly and ruthlessly after October 7th. They couldn't believe it. You throw a baby in an oven and turn on the oven, how the people who went through the Holocaust might respond to that. By the way, it's notable, progressives to this day deny that happened, despite eyewitnesses who actually found the baby in the oven. Progressives still deny it happened because progressives would rather not believe the truth than accept that they're on the side of monsters. That's very often the case with progressives. The abortion death cult of the Democratic Party and the progressive left, they can't recognize they're on the side of monsters, so they have to make the other side be as monstrous as possible. Thus, they demagogue Donald Trump as some next-level Hitler when they're the ones selling out the Israelis to terrorists in order to maintain power. Hamas says it can't imagine that Israel would have reacted the way it reacted. Now you've got the Senate Majority Leader, the highest-ranking Jewish American in American politics, saying there needs to be an election in Israel. Bibi Netanyahu needs to go. All this signals to Hamas is, y'all wait. We're going to shake things up. We're going to force an election in Israel. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything, Hamas. We're going to change Israel for you, and maybe the next guy will give you peace. So just you keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing. That's how Hamas is going to interpret it, because that's how Hamas interprets this sort of stuff. Chuck Schumer is causing more harm in Israel by doing what he did, but it's not about Israel. It has nothing to do with Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu is just an easy scapegoat because progressives hate him. All this is about is giving a heckler's veto to anti-Semites in the Democratic Party who are loud, and the Democrats have interpreted their loudness as being a majority, and yet they're a squeaky wheel. They're a minority in even the Democratic Party, but they are dominant in noise-making and media access and progressive sensitivities and progressive sympathies. And so they get to dictate the terms of the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer is willing to let the terrorists win so that he can stay Senate Majority Leader. He doesn't care that he undermines Israel. He doesn't care that he undermines progress in the war. He doesn't care about anything other than his own power. He is exactly as he says Donald Trump is. Now, I got to tell you about one great group standing firm against the Democrats. They don't care about power. They care about principle. That's Americans for Prosperity. And they are willing to wage principled campaigns that have been highly successful because they put principle first, and people resonate with principle. Americans for Prosperity right now, as an idea of their principles and commitment to the free market, they're highlighting how Bidenomics is bad. They've got a website, Bidenomics.com. Yes, that's right. The Democrats themselves did not think to go out and buy the domain Bidenomics.com after wrapping Joe Biden in the label. Americans for Prosperity beat them to it. They bought up the website, and now they've got the truth about Bidenomics. They've got the truth about Biden's campaign rhetoric and his policy rhetoric and what's actually happening in the economy, so you can easily understand what's actually happening versus what Biden is saying, and easily share it with your friends and get them educated on it as well. Bidenomics.com is brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. They're the leading conservative grassroots organization in the country. I'm proud to partner with them. AmericansForProsperity.org is their website, but they really, really want you to go see Bidenomics.com. So well done. Bidenomics.com.
Buenos dias, world, from the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm Marco Wendt.
And I'm Rick Schwartz. And we're your hosts for Season 3 of Amazing Wildlife, a show from iHeartRadio Ruby Studio and the global conservation organization behind the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
Listen as we dive into the efforts here in San Diego and spotlight the heroes working worldwide to care for the species you know and love.
Listen to Amazing Wildlife on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Open Line Friday, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the phones. Eric, I want to go to you next. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I want you to know that I love your show and just have one quick question. I'm noticing a lot of focus is being on the litigation, Phony, Willis, and whoever's doing that, but we seem to not be thinking as much about Donald Trump and his activities. My question is, with the current status, with the current judgment from the judge, what do you think will happen to Donald Trump and the perception regarding him? I'm just concerned about, the alleged things that he did with regard to trying to overturn the Georgia election, et cetera. It's kind of being lost in the shuffle because the focus is so great on Phony, and I'm wondering about where is the anger or the dissatisfaction with the activities and the conduct of Donald Trump?
That's a great question. And, honestly, the things he's accused of doing do completely get overshadowed by the conduct of those prosecuting him. There is a growing body of data in polling that more and more Americans believe him to be inappropriately targeted by prosecutors. And the reason is because the prosecutors' cases keep being undermined. It looks like they rushed to a judgment to try to nab him, and they're undermining their own case. So it doesn't matter what you or I or anyone else thinks about what Donald Trump did or did not do in the aftermath of the 2020 election. What matters is that a growing body of evidence suggests Americans are moving beyond it, have forgotten about it, don't much care about it, but do kind of care that he is that he's victimized. Now, there's a delicious irony to see Donald Trump as the victim in all of this, and a lot of it was stuff that he himself did. But suddenly he looks like the victim because of the prosecutors. They rushed it and they botched it. And that's frankly just the reality of the situation here with Donald Trump. Is it does make him look sympathetic to a lot of people, whether he looks sympathetic to you or not. Whether you think he was guilty or not, whether he did something bad or not, doesn't matter. To the average American who's just kind of looking at this from the periphery as they move on with life, it looks like the Democrats are using lawfare to get him, and the people of the United States do not like it when either political party tries to prosecute their political enemies. They simply do not like it. And a growing number of Americans, again, look at this and think they're trying to prosecute him because they don't like him, not because he did anything wrong. You can disagree with that, but you got to keep yourself separate from what the average American thinks. And the data is there to show you that they think that he was done wrong. Now, when we come back, we got to talk about Bernie Sanders and his 33-hour work week, basically a 4-day work week that Bernie Sanders wants people to engage with. We'll get into that and the reaction to it. First, I got to tell you about First Liberty Building and Loan. Whether you're buying a building or building a building, you're buying a franchise, you're buying out a business partner or a business competitor, those are the sorts of deals they deal with. If you need $250,000 or more because you see opportunity for your business, your lender's giving you the runaround, or you're just tired of your lender changing constantly at your local bank every time you got to deal with someone new and start the story of your business over again. First Liberty's been around since the 90s. They want to help you grow. They specialize in helping small businesses become big businesses. If you want to talk to them, go to firstlibertyga.com. Tell them I sent you. Firstlibertyga.com. Firstlibertyga.com. Get all their contact info. Spend just 10 minutes with them. See if they're a fit for you. See if you're a fit for them. Good people. Good people. They want to help your business. Now, when we come back, I'll take your phone calls. It is Open Line Friday. But also, more importantly, if you text ENGAGE to 33777, 33777, text the word ENGAGE, you can get a ticket to the gathering. It's August 8th through 11th in Atlanta. We formally invited the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, yesterday, hoping he'll say yes and come. We've got a great lineup of candidates, congressmen, senators, governors, and so many more coming to the gathering in August, where we take our listeners and readers online and bring you all together face-to-face to build community together in the real world. In Atlanta, August 8th through the 11th. Text the word ENGAGE to 33777. When we come back, Bernie Sanders wants to cut your work week. It's not going to work, but he's hopping mad about the criticisms of it.
Buenos dias, world, from the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm Marco Wendt.
And I'm Rick Schwartz. And we're your hosts for Season 3 of Amazing Wildlife, a show from iHeartRadio Ruby Studio and the global conservation organization behind the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
Listen as we dive into the efforts here in San Diego and spotlight the heroes working worldwide to care for the species you know and love.
Listen to Amazing Wildlife on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.